guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Gloria of Gloria's Knits, and thank you for clicking on today's knitting podcast. So it'll be the typical format of what I'm wearing, finished objects, works in progresses, plans and acquisitions. So yeah, if that's something you will enjoy, make sure you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on any of my new videos. And let's just jump right into today's video. Okay, so let's start off with what I'm wearing. So today I'm wearing my Eva cardigan, which is a pattern by Petite Knit. It's an oversized cardigan with a set-in shoulder construction for up here and 2x2 knitted finishings. So the cuffs and the button band. I really enjoy this pattern, although if I were to knit it again, definitely would have some modifications that I would do. But with this finished object, I think it's good. The sleeves are a little bit short. I mean, it's kind of like bracelet length, if you guys can see. And there's a bit too much positive ease. It looks really big on camera as it does in real life. So yeah, it's bigger than I anticipated. I think it fits more like a size small as opposed to the extra small that I knitted. So a little bit off gauge after blocking, and I don't really know what happened. I made a swatch before starting and somehow my gauge just transformed. But that's okay. I really do like the feeling of this yarn after it blocked. So it is a lot softer, although it's still pretty rustic, and hopefully it won't pill with a lot of wear. I've only worn it a few times just because it's a little hard to fit this under my jacket. I have some jackets that are a little bit more kind of form-fitting, like my wool jacket, so it's not like a puffer jacket or anything like that, so it doesn't have a lot of ease. Because the yoke depth is so low, it makes it a little bit hard to wear under jackets, but that's okay. I mean, in the spring and fall time I can wear it just as like an outer layer, but in the winter, if I do need a like outer coat on top of it, it's a little bit hard. But otherwise, I really do enjoy this pattern. I particularly like the 2x2 ribbed finishings. I think it's very unique. It looks a little different from your typical 1x1 ribbing. And yeah, that's what really kind of drew me to this pattern to begin with, along with the set-in shoulder construction. If it was a little bit more form-fitting, I think it would look a little nicer, but otherwise, still a very good pattern. So I really highly suggest you check out that pattern if you like kind of the look that I created with this Eva cardigan. So yeah, that is what I'm wearing for today's knitting podcast. In terms of finished objects, unfortunately, I don't have any finished objects just because it was a lot to take on. So I had my last knitting podcast just 2 weeks ago. I showed this as a finished object. So the Eva cardigan, usually it takes me about a month or so to finish an entire garment that is like a sweater or a pullover, usually in stockinette. If it's like more complex, like it contains lace work or color work or cables, that will definitely take longer, if not like double the time. So since it's only been 2 weeks since my last knitting podcast, no finished objects. But I do have some very exciting works in progresses. So let's jump into the first work in progress. The work in progress I want to talk about is the Just Sweater, which is created by, I believe, Soop Knits, a Korean designer. Also goes by the name of Manmi Choi. And I think, like I said in my last podcast, she rebranded. So it used to be called a different name, but now it's Soop Knits. She does have some YouTube videos on how to actually knit up this pattern, which is really helpful if you are a really beginner. I didn't really check out the videos, but I know it's available for those who do want to check it out. But it is a drop shoulder construction of a kind of oversized pullover with a folded over neckband, 1x1 ribbing for the cuffs, the collar, and also the bottom ribbing of the body. So very basic, very simple. The only thing I really kind of didn't particularly want to do was the decreases for the body. I wanted more a straight down pattern, which is what I did. And let me just show you some of my progress. So this is how it's looking so far. I made quite a bit of progress. I think last time I showed you guys, I just connected for the neckline here. So the two front panels I just connected, casted on the stitches in between for the neck, and then I was just going to knit back and forth. So the thing about this one is I had some troubles that required me to frog back a couple times. So I'll go through what happened. But before I do that, I do want to talk about the yarn. So this is the Patins classic wool worsted yarn. It's a very nice workhorse yarn. You could buy it at your local kind of yarn shop. That's a department store, kind of like Michael's, Joann's, you name it. They will definitely have the Patins classic wool worsted. I really like this dark brown color as well. I find that although this is a rustic yarn, it's not as scratchy or itchy as other rustic yarns like the Lion Brand's Fisherman Wool. That one is a lot more scratchy, so this one is softer for sure. I've also knitted my Petite knit Stockholm slipover v-neck in the same yarn but in a different color, so I really do like kind of how it looks after I wash and block it. It's also a really good knitting experience using this yarn. I find that it's super, super bouncy and just it doesn't feel like you're knitting with yarn that has no give. So the stitches have really good definition. I mean, obviously mine's not perfect, but I think it looks pretty good. It looks really even and it has a slight marling effect from the color of the yarn, which I'm not too worried about. I really do like this brown. It's a dark cool brown. I think it picks it up on the camera. If you compare it to like my Eva cardigan, this is a different shade. Like this is kind of like a grayish brown with some like rainbow specks in it. This one is a kind of marly brown that's like not fully cool, but not like warm either. So yeah, it's a unique brown. I really like it. So far, I've used 2.5 balls to knit up the entire yoke, and I'm down to the body where soon I will start the ribbing, not just yet. But about my struggles. So this is going to be a very unfortunate incident. It tends to happen with like a lot of the times when I'm knitting garments. So with this one, I had to actually redo the collar. I knitted this a total of 2 times. The first time I decided to knit the collar, I finished using up the first ball of yarn for the yoke. So before starting off my second ball, I wanted to just pick up the neck stitches and do the folded over collar. So according to the pattern, the shaping for the neckline is a little different from what you see here. There is some casting on of additional stitches kind of at a more dramatic rate so that the neckline is more shallow and kind of a little bit wider. So it looks kind of like more boat necky, if you know what I mean. It's a little hard to explain, but the stitches were casted on at the edge of the neck here. So when I was picking up stitches to do the collar, I might have picked it up, not might have, I most definitely did, picked up stitches that were kind of not exact. So it just looked really weird on one side. I picked up the wrong stitch. I think I went too in. So I picked up kind of too deep and therefore it just was not very neat looking. And then by the time I bound off, I just didn't like the look of it. The neck was also very small. I found it was a little hard for me to put my head through it. So I decided, unfortunately, to rip back the entire collar. So that was number 1. And then because I wanted to change the shaping of the neck, I had to rip back both the front panels. So I knit about to like here or so when I realized that I didn't like the neckline. So I had to rip back both sides of the front panel, redo some shaping kind of based on my own judgment. I kind of made it up and I decided to follow similarly to other patterns that I've knit before, where you do some make one left and make one right, kind of a few stitches in from the edge. So I did 3 stitches in. I did my increase there and I did it at a rate of only on each of the right side rows. So the increasing was a lot less dramatic and it made the neckline a little bit more deep and rounded. So I do like the look of it. I think it looks very neat with the increases on the side there, not at the edge. This suits the sweater a lot better. I didn't change any of the German short rows that were done for the shaping on the top of the shoulder, but only the neckline shaping. And yeah, that took up some time, obviously, because I had to do it twice. I frogged it and redid it. But otherwise, I followed the rest of the dimensions for the collar. I knitted to what the pattern suggested for the length, and then I folded down and bound off. Wasn't too difficult. I would suggest to not bind off too tightly. So I had to be very mindful of that. If it was too tight, I think it would cinch in too much and it would be hard to fit my head over it. But yeah, there is some elasticity to the neckline, so I think it's pretty good. I did knit it quite tightly on 3.75 millimeter needles, as opposed to, I think the pattern might have suggested like 4 millimeter needles or 4.5, something like that. But because I'm knitting the body also on a smaller needle size, I'm knitting this on 4.5 as opposed to suggested 5. I figured this would be an okay needle size to go down for the ribbing, which I'm going to be using the same needle size for the cuff and the bottom ribbing as well for the body. So yeah, that is my story of how much trouble I had for the collar, which I'm glad I did this in the beginning because I did really want to see how the neckline would sit when I was trying on the sweater before I knit too far down, because let's say if I just kept going all the way down to the bottom of the sweater, then I would have to rip back so much more if I were to change up the shaping of the neckline. So yeah, that was an unfortunate event, but we powered through and I made the change and it looks okay now. The second time I had to frog back, unfortunately, was when I was knitting the rest of the front panel. So after I finished the collar, I'm like, okay, I could just knit back and forth flat, doing the stockinette until the pattern suggests I need to connect the front and the back and cast on some stitches for the armhole. But unfortunately, I wasn't paying attention and I knit too much for the front panel, and I had to frog back about like 3 inches because I was supposed to join in the round earlier, and therefore, yeah, I had to frog back a few inches. That was a little saddening, and I usually just like rip back. I don't do a lifeline or anything like that, and then I just pick up all the stitches. I don't think it's too hard to do that when you're on like bigger needles, so like 4.5, 5, even 4 millimeter needles. I think it's okay to just literally pull out your needle and then like frog it. If I was on like 3.5 or 3.25, I would definitely put in a lifeline before pulling, or if it's like lace work, I would also try to pick up those stitches before frogging back. That concludes my struggles so far that I've had with the sweater. I did want to mention that I only purchased 5 balls of the Patins Classic Wool worsted yarn. So it is 500 grams of a worsted weight yarn. And according to how I want to knit it, I do want to kind of use as much yarn as I possibly can to extend the body. I don't really want too cropped of a sweater. I want a decent length. I mean, with this cardigan, I made it more cropped than I wanted. So learning from that mistake, I want to make this a little bit longer. But given that I only have 5 balls of yarn, I do want to stop knitting the body right now and pick up the stitches for the sleeves and knit one sleeve, measure how much yarn was used in that single sleeve before I continue with the body, because I'm on my 3rd ball of yarn. I'm halfway through it, so I only have another half ball, so another 50 grams. And I think it's like too short right now for me to do the ribbing. I have a really long torso. I don't know if you guys can tell, I'm usually just sitting in my videos, but my torso is really long. So I don't really want to start doing the ribbing already because that doesn't give me too long of a body. So I think I'm gonna do the sleeve first, see how much yarn is going to be used, and based on that, then I will continue on the body. If I still find it's like way too far off, like, you know, 2-3 inches off, I'll just purchase another ball of yarn and solely use that ball of yarn to do the ribbing, and just finish off my existing ball to do the stockinette in case it's a different lock color, because who knows, maybe I won't be able to find the same lock color. I bought this yarn maybe about like 1 or 2 months ago, so could be that Michaels has now run out of this lot, so therefore a different color for the rest. So I think it would be the least noticeable if it was just the ribbing for the body. However, I did allocate one entire ball, so 100 grams per sleeve. So I think that's more than enough. So hopefully if I just use 3/4 of a ball, the 2 sleeves will use up 150 grams. And therefore, if I have another 50 grams, I think it would be totally okay. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. I might put a hold on this work in progress for now because I do want to focus on other projects, which I'll talk about in the next part of the video for plans and acquisitions. But for now, let's move on to the next work in progress. Oh, it's getting a little hot in my Eva cardigan, but that's okay. I will power through. So the next work in progress I want to talk about is my Bluewave cardigan. So you guys haven't seen this since my first knitting podcast, I believe, which was, I think like a month and a half, 2 months ago. But I was working on the Bluewave cardigan on my trip in Korea and Japan back in September. So since then, I haven't really done much with it. But it is a pattern written by a Korean designer, Doorumi. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. I need to sneeze. Oh, bless me. Anyway, so this is a Korean pattern. It's literally not translated at all in English. I had to Google Translate, but for the most part, it was pretty easy to follow since it is charted. It is a raglan cardigan with lacework and cables and I-cord finishing for the button band and all along the edges of the cardigan. So it's a very pretty cardigan. I would say it's more so a fall/spring, summer kind of cover-up cardigan. So I don't plan on really wearing this buttoned up. It will be like an open cardigan, unlike this one. This one is a closed cardigan that I like to wear, like more so like a sweater. But that one will be open. I will mainly be wearing it over like dresses, that sort of thing. But yeah, this one does take a lot of focus. It's not really mindless knitting. I've finished the increases for the yoke, but even after all of that, there's still a lot of focusing because for the body, there's a lot of lace work, there's a lot of cables. It twists in different ways. You have to make sure you're twisting it the correct way. You have to like count your rows, make sure you're doing the cables at twisting at the right rows and not like too early, not too late. Otherwise, it'll look kind of wonky. But last time I showed you guys, it was a pretty much halfway done, I would say. Yeah, a halfway done project. But now I have gotten a little start on the sleeve. So this is how much I've done for the sleeve. I would say it kind of goes a little bit past my elbow now. So it's a little bit scrunched up. It's a little hard to show, but I think it's looking pretty nice right now. I did make a few modifications in terms of how I decrease. So I've been decreasing at a rate that is slower than what the pattern suggests, mainly because I feel like my cardigan is just smaller than what it's intended to look like. There's only one size for this, but however, it's a free pattern, so I'm not really expecting all that much. So based on that single size and my 5mm needles, knitting using this Korean yarn, I don't think my gauge is very much similar to the pattern. So I think it's a little tighter, it's a little like more scrunched up, but I think blocking will kind of really open up the cables and the lace work. So hopefully the arm is not too tight, because when I try it on right now, it's like very, very tight on my bicep and tricep. So it's not all that comfortable, but hopefully it will just open up and be okay. But otherwise, I find that this yarn is really fun to work with. It's not super stretchy, but it's not scratchy either. So it doesn't like cut into my finger or anything like that. However, obviously, because it's not 100% wool, it doesn't have the memory as 100% wool yarns have. This does have some nylon in it, so it hopefully won't pill too horribly. I likely will still be hand washing it and like drying it. Yeah, I really like it. Hopefully the I-cord edging for this cardigan won't be too hard to learn. It'll be my first time. And I think after working on the sleeve, I did break the yarn on the body before doing the I-cord because I only have one single cone of yarn, so that's why I had to break the yarn to start on the sleeve. And when I did that, I kind of took a better look at the body, and I think it's just too cropped. right? It looks so small. I think I need to most likely do one more pattern repeat, like one more cable turn, um, before I do the I cord. So yeah, I think I could use one more. What do you guys think? It's too cropped, right? We're not at that age where we're wearing super cropped cardigans. I want a cardigan that at least hits the top of my high waisted jeans. I don't want like skin showing. I don't want to be wearing like crop tops, but yeah, this is the yarn that I'm using. Like I said, it's a Korean yarn um, called the souffle yarn. It is 65% extra fine wool, 10% cashmere, and 35% nylon. So per 100 grams, there is 300 meters. So it is like DK-ish, but I think after washing and blocking it, it blooms like a lot. So it fills up all the gaps, and I think it will be a beautiful yarn to use. I will most definitely have a lot of leftover because it feels like I have so much still, and I'm pretty much done like more than half of the cardigan. So I'll have to decide what to make with the remaining yarn, but for now, that's all I have planned. Um, yeah, this is the Bluewave cardigan. There is some progress, but not a whole lot. And like I said, I will be putting some of these projects on hold while I start a new project, which let's jump right into plans and acquisitions. So if you guys saw my last video about holiday sweaters, I asked you guys for some advice on kind of which sweater to pick as the sweater to cast on for the holidays. So I have my really beautiful red kind of superwash wool DK weight yarn by Patons. It's the Patons Klansman Superwash DK yarn. After I took a look at it online, I realized that it's actually discontinued. So sounds about right. My mom's had this yarn for 10 plus years, and who knows how and where she bought it from, but it is in her stash and therefore is in my stash. So I'm going to be using that to most likely knit the Nova sweater by the Knit Pearl Girl. I feel like that's such a tongue twister for me to say the Knit Pearl Girl. I don't know if it's just me or other people have this problem, but I'm going to be knitting this circular yoke sweater that is stranded colorwork. Should be beginner level, I hope. It is also a free pattern, and I will be using my precious superwash yarn for this pattern to make a red and white-ish sweater for the holidays. So hopefully I can finish before December 25th. And yeah, that is going to be my sole kind of goal for the next month. And hopefully, yeah, like I said, hopefully I can finish this sweater. It will be a first of many things. So it'll be my first circular yoke sweater. I've only knitted drop shoulder construction, set in shoulder construction, and raglan construction for the yokes in the past. So it will be my first time using this new construction of circular yokes. I also briefly read the pattern and saw it's not the typical increase that I'm used to, which is make one right or make one left. But in this pattern, I'm supposed to be doing yarn over increases, which I've done for my lace work, but I'm not too sure how that will look in the yoke construction. Hopefully it's not too obvious and it won't kind of draw the eye to that detail, because I don't really like that look for circular yokes. That's usually why I don't generally tend to gravitate towards circular yoke patterns. But for this one, because there is color work, I think it will kind of hide it nicely. It will not be my first time reading charts, but it will be my first time reading color work chart. So I think in the chart, it will say where you should be using the main color and where you should be using the contrast color. So since I'm only managing 2 colors, I think it shouldn't be too bad. I've only ever used 2 colors in a sweater when I was doing stripes. So that I wouldn't consider as stranded color work. It's just kind of doing stripes. But I did have to manage like yarns from being tangled because I was carrying the yarn up for the stripes so that I didn't have to break the yarn every single time. But anyway, yes, this will be my first color work sweater. So I'm really excited about it. You guys seem to have been really encouraging on me starting the Nova sweater. It looks to be a very good beginner friendly pattern. So I'm really excited. Hopefully it goes well. There's also only the color work on the yoke part of the top, so the rest of the body will be in stockinette. I most likely will go up a needle size for the color work and then go down a needle size for the stockinette, just because I do like the look of 4mm using this superwash yarn. I don't really want to go up to a 4.5. So hopefully I'll do the color work in 4.5 and I'll do the rest of the body in just 4. So that is the plan. Hopefully I have more progress to show you in the next podcast, but yeah, I haven't fully decided on which size to knit just yet. I think most likely between size 2 or 3. I do want a bit more positive ease, but I'm kind of scared if it's too much positive ease, it'll look kind of weird with the circular yoke. Maybe the yoke will be too deep. I don't think this pattern looks like, this pattern only suggests like 2 to 4 inches of positive ease. So I do want to go with a suggestion, but just likely on the higher end. And based on how my swatch blocks, which I haven't done so yet, I only knitted the swatch, but I haven't blocked it yet. After it blocks, I'll see how the number of stitches are per the 4 inches and see if I'm close to gauge. If I am, then I'll go with size 3. If I'm really off, maybe I'll have to adjust. We'll see. But I will give you guys more of an update next time when I cast on. I haven't casted on just yet. I will be checking my stash to see which contrast color to use. I'm hoping to use a white or cream color, but I don't think I have a DK weight superwash yarn in that color. So I likely will just use a regular wool yarn that is non-superwash, and hopefully the tension of the two together won't be too wonky. If it is, that will be a problem for future Gloria. But for now, I'm just going to be using a regular wool yarn. So yeah, those are the plans for the upcoming weeks, and hopefully we get a bit more done. So yeah, that pretty much concludes today's knitting podcast. I hope you guys enjoy. Comment down below if you guys have any tips or tricks for your first color work sweater. And because I've done a little bit of my research, but I'm still a little bit scared. Obviously, I'm nervous. It is the first time doing color work, but the stakes are low. I mean, it's just a holiday sweater. It's not like a sweater I'm going to be wearing like all the time, but I will appreciate having a good finished garment at the end of this color work sweater. So yeah, comment down below if you guys have ever tried the Nova sweater, or if you have any tips or tricks for a beginner like me doing color work for the first time. Thank you so much for clicking and watching today's video. If you made it to the end, give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. And I'll see you guys in my next knitting podcast. Thanks for watching. Bye.